Hi there, this is Darren Peterson. I'm a saxophonist who sometimes makes videos talking about music theory and practice and how to make your improv better using various tools. So I would like to talk about pentatonic scales for this and maybe a few videos into the future, talking about what a pentatonic scale is good for and how to break it into pieces and make it useful in your playing. So the first thing I want to do is just kind of give you the sound of the pentatonic scale. As you may have seen from many other resources online, the pentatonic scale is 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Back up to 1 up top. And that's just a very simple 5-note scale, hence the name pentatonic, meaning 5 tones. You can play the pentatonic scale very safely because it doesn't have anything that's dissonant about it. Also, as you may have gleaned from other places online, the pentatonic scale starting on its 6 is a relative minor pentatonic scale. Same notes, sounds minor. Check it out. And unsurprisingly, with one only very small change, you can get the blues scale out of the minor pentatonic scale. You add a flat 5 as a passing note and you get this. So that is a very common thing that improvisers learn to work with early in their process. Oh, play the blues scale. Sounds great. The problem is if you just run the pentatonic or the blues scale up and down, it sounds really boring. And so you have to find ways to make it more interesting. So I'm going to do two things real quick. I'm going to give you a sample of the pentatonic scale in major and minor, and I'm going to use a backing track from Autumn Leaves, which is a jazz standard that you may know. Autumn Leaves is interesting for a couple of reasons. The important one in this case is that Autumn Leaves is built of 4 bars of concert B flat and 4 bars of concert G minor. And what that means is I can play the major pentatonic and its relative minor in 4-bar sequences, basically. So I can put both of them back to back. Same notes, 2 different relative keys. So here's a clip of me playing a little bit of Autumn Leaves, and I'm just waiting for the 1 chord at the end of each 4-bar phrase and playing that one pentatonic scale, whether it's B flat or G minor. So that was a simple example of pentatonic scales on the 1 chord of a 2-5-1 change. And as you can hear, I just played the scale up or maybe down, and it's pretty vanilla sounding. It's not very exciting. But what becomes interesting is when you make melodies out of the pentatonic scale, because it's a limited set of information that you're working with, just 5 notes, you can break it into pieces and get all kinds of interesting stuff out of it. So it's these permutations of that scale and all the intervals inside it that I'm going to be interested in and focused on. So the first thing we want to do to break the pentatonic scale up is to play it in thirds. And when I say play the scale in thirds, I mean playing it every other note in the scale. If you've practiced your major scales in thirds, you know it sounds like this. And that's playing every other note, a third up, a second down, a third up, a second down throughout the scale. We can do the same thing with the pentatonic scale, play the first note and the third note, jump down to the second note, up to the 4th note, etc. It's going to sound like this. You'll notice that the pentatonic scale in thirds has jumps in it. It has wider intervals than the major scale did, and that's because there's these skips between 3 and 5 and 6 and 1 in the pentatonic scale. These extra gaps in the scale where you left out 4 and left out 7 give you wider intervals to play with. So you end up not just playing thirds and seconds, you end up playing fourths and thirds. And those additional jumps are really interesting sounding. If you practiced all your pentatonic scales in thirds like that, all the way through your instrument, and then the descending form as well, all the way full range of your instrument, you can expect that you'll have a whole bunch of interesting sort of intervals under your fingers now. You could even go so far as to play them in alternating ups and downs. Which is really interesting all of a sudden. It's just the same 5 notes you've been playing before, but this time, because you've got wide intervals and you're alternating directions, suddenly you've got a crazy amount of interesting material that you can play with in little chunks throughout your improvisation. So I'm going to take that and put that on autumn leaves and just see what the patterns yield for me. I'm going to play them in fragments. I'll probably displace them in time a little bit, and that will hopefully make some interesting sounds that perk your ears up. One other trick I'll throw at you before I close this video out is that pentatonics don't have to be based on the one chord. So you can, on let's say a long stretch of one major, you can play like if you're in B flat, let's say, you can play the B flat pentatonic. But there is a trick which I will now tell you about, which is that you can play the 5 pentatonic over 1 anytime you want. So 5 over 1 is going to give you a different set of notes. F is 5, G is 6, and A is major 7. Then you jump to C, which is 9, and D, which is 3. So these are all good notes. These are all the notes that would sort of outline the B-flat major 9 sound. You get the major 7 and the 9 in there. Suddenly you've got this really nice sound, but you're skipping the root. It still is a really great thing. So I'm going to play a little more on Autumn Leaves, and I'm going to play on the regular pentatonic and then on the 5 pentatonic, sitting on top of 1. And as you listen to that superimposition, I think you'll be able to hear the difference. So hopefully you could hear the difference there between 1 pentatonic and 5 pentatonic sitting over the top of 1. In future videos, I'm going to talk about other intervals. I'm going to talk about other ways that you can break the pentatonic scale up and use it in various ways. And I'm going to talk about other superimpositions that can add interesting sounds without really making the work that more complex. You're talking about sticking a pentatonic scale over a particular chord, and you get a great sound out of it without having to learn any extra tricks or techniques other than the pentatonic scale itself. So in the description below, you're going to find a link to a PDF file which has a bunch of the stuff that I just talked about. It's going to show you the major scale and the pentatonic scale side by side, so you can see the differences between them. You're going to be able to see pentatonic scales in thirds, ascending and descending, and also alternating ascending and descending forms going up and down, all in the key of C, so you'll be able to sort of compare and contrast them. And the hope is that you'll be able to take those and transpose them your own self on your instrument, hopefully without even writing it down. What you're looking for is to get the sound and the fingers together as quickly as possible. So adding that to your technical warm-up, if you have room in your practice day for that, can yield a whole bunch of interesting stuff. And then from there, applying that on play-alongs or listening to the radio and playing over the top of it can all be really great. And you can make all kinds of good progress toward incorporating pentatonics into your playing. So this is Darren Peterson signing off. Hope you have a great day. Practice hard, and ta-da.